Alright, on today's adventure, it's kind of rainy out, so I figure I'm going to do a little workbench work. The last week, an older gentleman in town approached me, and he had that John Deere tractor. He had a lawn service come and no longer using the tractor. He just wanted to get rid of it, and he knows I kind of play with him, so he approached me and said, "Do you want that tractor?" I went over there and I said, "Sure, I do." So he gave me that tractor. We got a couple of workbenches that went over to Brian's house, and then we also, while I was there, he also gave me a chainsaw. He goes, "You want this also?" And he digs it out of underneath one of the workbenches and says it's got no time on it. He says he probably used it about 2 hours, and then he loaned it to his son-in-law, and his son-in-law ran what fuel was in it, and of course after doing that, ran it with straight fuel, and it kind of wasted the top end on it. So, see what you can see down in there. The light should kick on. There we go. Now you can see those scratches in the bore of the cylinder, that piston right there. And that's indication that that top end is just junk. It's still, you can still pull it over, but I'm sure it does not run very well. So he dropped it off to one of the local places to kind of go get repaired, and I think they told him it was going to be around $200 or so to get it fixed. And at that point, he just bought a new saw. So it just kind of sat there with the exhaust pieces off of it and his assessment. So again, he bought a new saw, and he just kind of gave this one away. Here's what we got for fuel inside there. It looks... Come on. Trying to get the camera light to come on. There you go. So if you look down in there, you may just have to take my word for it. It is on the yellow side, but there is no oil in it, you could tell. So that burned up the top end, and I looked up the saw, and the saw is actually a very good saw. It's probably, $500 or so new. So I started looking for top ends for it, and I went on eBay, and lo and behold, delivered to my door. It was a complete top end with piston, rings, cylinder, upper bearing, and I think C-clips, and all that was $20.50 delivered to the house. And reviews of the top ends actually were quite good. So we'll see how we're going to make out, and if I could take you along for the journey. It's probably the part number of it right there. I'm sure it's made in China. So anyway, we're going to go start tearing this thing down, and we'll see what's on the inside of it, and see what it takes to get it up and running again. Alright, so I didn't look it up or anything online how to tear it apart, so I'm just going to kind of go for it and just start taking stuff off of it to make it a smaller package. I believe we have to get to those 4 bolts on the bottom of the crankcase, but just for ease and safety's sake, I'll take the bar off and just start taking some stuff off and try to get the plastics off of it and get a better idea what we're looking at, and kind of make the assessment from there. I already drained the gas out of it, and there wasn't much bar oil that's in it still, so that may ooze out on us a little bit. We'll use that for assembly. Alright, I'll be back in a minute. Alright, so I've been whittling away. Took the pull start off, the air cleaner, the handle, and I'll try to get this upper plastic piece off. And from the other side, I could see that there was like a rubber boot between the intake and the carburetor. So I took the 2 bolts off the carburetor. I thought I could pull that away. It's not happening, so I'm going to see if I can kind of take that all in one unit. So I took the pull start off, and then there is just a banjo clamp that's on the inside of there with a screw. So that should make that a little easier to get apart, and maybe that can all come apart as one assembly. And see where we go from there. The hardest part was getting these stupid things out. They got these plugs with barbs on them, and you're trying to get 2 screwdrivers in there and hold this off and flipping around while you're doing it. They go in like these locations and those locations. So, other than that, it's really straightforward. So I'm going to go take that off of there and see if we can kind of get in a little closer. Alright, getting that to pull away from that was no bargain. I ended up just pulling I had the bolts off the carburetor, but I ended up pulling the fuel lines off of it to try to give it room plug wire, and it's got a boot with a clamp on it, which the clamp is still on the inside there. And then the other part was just trying to get the kill switch wire enough length in that so I can kind of pull away from it and go to the side. So I got that pulled away, and now I think I'm going to try getting this cap off of the top right here. And I think if I can get this removed, I might be able to get the split the jug. I mean, the jug may pull straight up off the top, but the hardest part was getting this orange piece out of the way without destroying things, and then also to turn around and get all these fed back into where they need to go without being a total pain or destroying anything. So I'm going to try going for that guy there. I'm sure there's probably something down in this corner right here too. So let's try that. I think I'm in. I popped that guy off of there, and now you can kind of see the whole jug. And I won't lie, it was a bit of a pain in the ass to try to get to. I'm looking right now for what else is kind of held together. I see there's two wires going down, and I see a screw going behind that flywheel. Can you see the head of it, what I'm talking about? Well, it's connected to the jug, so that's going to have to come off. So I'm thinking, unless there's an access hole in the magneto, which I do not see, I'm going to take the magneto off to get that off of there, because that's going to have to come off, I believe. And it's screwed into right there. So the mag's got to come off, and that might even make disassembly and reassembly even easier. Again, I'm just kind of winging it. And it was almost to the point where I was going to go look it up on the computer and get an idea, but so far we haven't broken anything, so I'm going to continue on. Alright, so I'm going to get this mag off of here and give us also another little better look inside to that jug. Alright, so I took the nut off of it, and then I got underneath it with a screwdriver on one corner. And just took a brass rod right in the center of it, and you got a little bit of play in the crank, and that's all you're kind of hoping for. And you drive the center of it down without damaging it, and popped off. It's a tapered fit. Now we can kind of see in there, we see what we need to go replace. That's the screw I got to get out. And then I think after that point, I could probably just separate the top half from the crank and get it apart and see what we got. I'm going to blow all this crap out of here first so I don't get all the junk in the crankcase, and then kind of go from there. I can bolt my coil back down just so that stuff doesn't slop around. Trying to figure out if this is the wire that was fighting me right here. But that does not look like it goes to the motor, so I don't think that was going to help me even if I did take this apart and took that off first. So I figured instead of letting it flop all over the place, I'd stick the dogs in the vise and kind of support the saw when I take it apart. And when I flipped it over, everything just kind of fell out of this one corner, so I was able to get that, finally, the orange plastic out of my way. So we're going to finish blowing it out and then see if we can go take those four guys out and see if we can take the top of the motor off and see if the rest of it will stay in place. We'll see how that works out. I have a feeling that's going to all end up flopping around too, but don't know till you get there. And I got those four out at the bottom. A couple of them are just kind of sitting there holding it in place. And I'm looking at this side of it. This is that side of it. I don't see any other bolt holes in there, so I don't think anything is under the chain brake is kind of holding it. So I think I'm just going to start kind of tapping on it with a brass rod and see if that crankcase will start to split for us. Alright, well I figure I'm going to go hit it with a plastic hammer first and see if we can kind of get it to pop and separate. And if not, we'll go up to the big guns. And it's moving. Hopefully the crank stays still. That's that. Let's see, a light I'll show you on the inside of the jug. Alright. Yeah, it's pretty scored. Yeah, see that? It's that guy. That ring is stuck in the groove. It won't even move on that side. Poppy's out of a stand, I'll show you. It's just totally embedded in there. So the bottom end feels good though, and the bearings feel fine. So that should be okay. So let's see about getting that little piston off of there, and then make sure it's. Let's see if it's directional first. See if there's anything that's says this end up or has an arrow or anything on it. Doesn't look like it though. Yeah, let me get that guy off of there, and we'll open up the other package, and we'll see how that stuff looks. Alright, so I opened up this little package here with the pieces in. It had everything kind of tucked up inside the jug. So I took the pieces out, and then also got the new piston out, and you can see it has an arrow on it. And generally they are directional. And what I did was, you could see the detents or the stops for the springs, for the rings, so they don't rotate. And they happen to be on the intake side of this piston. So I'm going to say that arrow points to the exhaust, and that'll give us a direction of which way that piston goes. I got one side of the clip out of there. Nice beefy small screwdriver. Was able to rip that out of there, but it looks like it might be pressed in. I tried pushing on it. It's not floating in there, or it might be just because it overheated that it locked itself in there. So I may have to take this whole assembly, kind of lay it on its side, set that on a socket, and tap it with either a brass rod or something from the other side to get that out of there. And I may have to do the same to reassemble it too, but I'll see how that's my next goal, is to get that out of there. See if we can drive that piston out of there. I just got a punch in the top side. I'm kind of just lifting up on the piston a little bit. There we go. Right there. That is what the death of it was. Yeah, no bringing that back, that's for sure. Alright, well, I'm going to go clean that up. I think I need to go pick up some, I don't think I have any of that color RTV to reseal it. Probably looks fine. But I want to go clean that up so I could seal it to get it all back together again. And so I'm going to take a little ride to the store and get some red RTV. Alright, so here's where I am. I cleaned up that surface down there actually with Scotch-Brite and brake cleaner, and then assembled the new piston on it, and I put a hose clamp across the top of it to act as a ring compressor, because you have to, you know, there's no cylinder head on it yet. Piston goes in from the bottom. So the jug is got some oil rubbed on the inside, and then I hit this on the wire wheel, and then put some high temp RTV on there. So now the next part is to get that on there. So we're going to see about trying to assemble this guy, and I'll pop the camera down on here on the side, see how we make out. Good enough. I think I got a plastic camera out. Yeah. The hardest part is getting the rings to get over the gap, but on the edge here they do have a bit of a taper, so it kind of helps it get started too. The only problem is it's so far up in there you really can't see what the rings are doing and the clamp are doing, so we'll see how this kind of goes together. Other part of it is this seal is fairly important. If the crank leaks at all on a two-stroke, it uses the bottom half of the engine. So when the piston goes down, when the piston goes up, it sucks fuel in from the carburetor. Yeah, fuel in from the carb. The charge of that air-fuel mixture goes on the bottom of the engine, underneath the piston, down in here. The oil part of it that you're mixing in the premix kind of sticks to the crank and the rod bearings and kind of lubricates the bottom end, and then you know, eventually goes through the exhaust too. But it keeps that's what the oil is for, to help lubricate that part of it and the backside of the cylinder walls right here. That mist is kind of just spread around down there. Then the piston, when it goes back down again, it takes that charge and pushes it around the sides. And then if you could see the veins on the side here. I'm not looking at the, hold on a second guys. All right. So on here there's veins. Flashlight. There's veins. See those veins? And what that does is allow right there the charge to kind of go around the cylinder back to the top end and compress and fire again. So that's the idea of it, and that's how it lubricates it. Anyway, let's see if we can go get this sucker on there. See if this hose clamp is going to cause me issues or not. I have a feeling now that I'm looking at it, it is. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to use that. We're going to have to just try to work it with our fingers. I'm going to shut you off for a second. I'm going to take that clamp back off and then go from there. What I really should have done was left the wrist pin out, started the piston in the cylinder, and then put it together, now that I'm thinking about it. But sometimes you just screw up. Let's see if we can do it this way. The other problem that's a pain too is it's got, I'm gonna have to pop that off of there. That's the way I'm gonna have to do it. There's pins that hold the ring in a certain spot, and it's walking around those. So I gotta take it back apart. Alright, so this is where I am. I ended up wiping the sealing back off of it because it was making more of a mess trying to get over it. So I'll re-put that back on. But what I got going now is I kind of worked the rings in. You can see how far down they are inside there. So it would have been, normally if it was a flat surface like this is where you were putting the jug into, you could have that hose clamp just slide right up off of it and the rings get pushed down. You undo the clamp, you take it out of your way. Fortunately, it's not really able to do that on this one. I'm sure they sell some kind of specialty tool. But so I got the pin in there supporting it right now. It's just down far enough for the rings not to pop out. So it's going to be a bit tedious to try to get that sucker in there, down without the rings falling out of it. And then I still have to get the clip on this side, but it has to be done. So we're going to do our best on that. I'm going to go swap and put the saw back in the vise again, and then try moving the jug on top of it. Alright, we're going to plop you up here and showing me how to struggle with this to get it back together. It might block your view. So I can't help it. The hard part's going to be getting that clip on there without that ripping that sucker out of there, though. As soon as I find it. And there it is. Still in the pliers. Alright, this isn't going to go very well. This is really going to suck. Let's see if I can get you in where you can see a little better. It has kind of like this half tensioner in the center of it. You know it's going to launch across the room. You know that sound. Oh, you almost, did you screw yourself? No, you got it. There's kind of like a cutaway in the groove too of the piston. I think if you get it in there. There you get it. Gotta make sure that thing's all the way in too, because if that pops out, it'll just trash everything you just got done doing. So you want to make sure that they're seated really well. Alright. Guy is in. So now, let's give it a little bit more. Now I'm going to go reseal that crankcase up and put it back together. I also was able to get this seal lifted up, so I put some underneath it and reseated back over. The other side still in the retainer on that side. I'm sure I could have taken it all apart, but I am not going to. Yeah, there you go. Hopefully I can zoom in. Alright, so let me get some sealant on that and push that sucker back together, and hopefully I put it on the right direction. Yes, I did. And start reassembling this thing. Alright, a little backpedaling when I was trying to reassemble this and finding different ways. What I ended up doing, there's like a inner white housing. So that has to go on before the orange piece. You can kind of see it all tucked up inside the upper level. And the biggest problem is trying to get that rubber clamp back on that hose. I was trying to push the whole thing down, get it tightened up on there, and it wasn't happening. So I was able to pull the carburetor back, and then I removed this ring right here, and you know, this one's just kind of floating on the outside, but this ring on the inside, and it allowed the rubber boot to collapse and get it down through the hole, and then vice versa when I put it back on after all this white cover was put back in place. So so now I'm just in the process of reassembling the carburetor and all the hoses to it. Again, if the first one takes you 3 times as long as to do as the next one. Now that I know how everything comes apart, it's actually a fairly decent job. It's just that everything's very tightly packed in there, so to speak. So I'm gonna get the carb back on there, get the linkage back on there, and put it all back together, and we'll put some fuel in it, see if we get this thing to fire up. All right, I got it all back together. Got some gas in it. Probably have to work the gas through a little bit, I would think. I may have flooded that plug because I put a bunch of assembly lube when I put it together. I'm going to pop the plug out of it. If the plug's dry, I'm going to dribble a little bit of fuel down it and see if that gets it to kick. Or maybe not. I would say it's just flooded looking. Judging by that carb, it's got a lot of fuel around it. So I'm going to try it. A little up off idle. I'm going to go pull that plug and dry that out because you know that's got all caca on it. that's a success. I think the air cleaner has a little too much oil in it, and it was causing it to flood too. So I'm gonna go clean it up a little bit, and that's pretty much it. She should be a goer. I'm gonna let it probably run and shut it off and kind of break it in a couple of shots, you know what I mean? Let it run for 5 minutes, shut it off, cool down, and just to get everything kind of polished up on the inside. Let's got it all back together. I had the chain a little too tight, had to loosen that up, and that's pretty much it. Just let it run for, it's probably been running for about 5 minutes. I turned the idle up a little bit. I could probably turn it back down after it breaks in a little, but that seems good. Everything runs fine, it's not noisy. Try to keep the RPM down a little bit for now, but again, I'm going to cycle it a few more times, but I think it's good to go, and ready to go chomp some wood. So for $20.50, and I had about 2 hours playing with it. It ended up being a good deal. And if I had to go do it again, I could probably do it in about 45 minutes maybe. So again, thanks for watching, commenting, subscribing. Anybody watching this, I hope it kind of helps you out if you put one of them together. It's the worst part is just everything is very small and tight together. Other than that, it's really not a bad job. Thanks for watching.